I am honored to be out here tonight. I'm honored to be a little part of this, and I think we're all in this together, and that's the great thing about this independence movement. Mitch Sylvester is here tonight from State Free Alberta. We're going to be hearing from Mitch. Jeff Rath can't be here this evening. I spoke with Jeff the other day. He was sick. The big man is big cold. He's got a big cold, so he can't be here tonight. Unfortunately, I know he'd like to be here for sure. We do have Dennis Kalma here. You might know Dennis. Dennis co-wrote The Value of Freedom with Jeff Rath, so he'll be up here a little bit later. We're going to have a Q&A, so if you've got any questions, we're going to set you up down the middle here at the end, and you can ask Mitch and Dennis some questions, and I'll be handling the microphone, okay? I'm playing in a Kung Fu class. Oh, I see. Okay. I didn't catch on right away. Okay. All right. That's fun. Don't forget, go to statefreealberta.com for information. If you're looking for petition places you want to donate or help out, that's the place to go. They've got a great database there now of all the petition places and different events around the province. It's remarkable, it's searchable. Thanks to the volunteers who are here tonight, helping out and putting on this event. These are happening all across the province, as you've seen, and we just do great work. So thank you so much for that. And if you can volunteer, by all means do that as well, and you can become a canvasser and help out the cause. And just before I move on here, there are exits. If we have an issue here tonight, exits to the side if you need to leave the building. I want to thank the Dalhousie Community Center as well for having us here. This is a short notice event. It really was. It was just on Monday I found out about this. And look, we filled the room, and the street's pretty busy. And if you haven't signed the petition, don't forget to do that, because you can do that until 9 o'clock here. These events have been happening back since January 2nd, but I think it was the January 10th event we had here in Calgary at Queensland Community Center. But things started going crazy, and it's been continuing all month long. There will be the Q&A at the end, so if you've got any questions, get those together. Dennis and Mitch are here to answer the questions, but you're here to hear from Mitch. I'd like to thank Mitch for all the hard work he's doing. Mitch, yeah. And Mitch bought a new truck. Maybe he'll tell you about the new truck. He's put tens of thousands of kilometers on his truck since the beginning of the year. He's so giving of his time. He's out at so many of these events. He's leading this movement. The petition's in his name. So let's bring out Mitch Sylvester from State Free Alberta.
Let's talk politics. There we go. All right, what's going on with us? Let's talk about current events for a little bit. The first thing is that we have to thank you at State Free Alberta for making us so busy that we can't keep up. And that's basically what's going on. We never anticipated, hoped, the excitement, the number of people that we have showing up, and the grim resolve in their eyes and on their face when they sign the petition. Because I really believe that for the first time in a lot of people's lives, they think that they're going to sign something that's actually going to make a difference. And I really want to thank all of you that have signed, and those of you that are on the fence. It will be my job to flip you over to our side tonight. Just I'm going to do my very best to do that. And my problem with what I have to tell you is it's really an inconvenient truth. What I have to tell you is things that up until 4 years ago I would have never believed going on in my own country. I still actually, with all the information I have and all of the people that I can talk to, I still cannot believe what's going on. And we have to be very conscious of what's going on, because, I mean, we have to also understand where we live and what we have to lose and what other people have to gain from doing what I think they're doing or what I know they're doing to us. So we're in a position, I've had people explain this to me before, where politics, sometimes nothing happens in 100 years, and then 100 years happen in 1 year. We're in that 1 year. We're in a position right now to make a decision for what's going to happen in Alberta and possibly Canada for the next 100 years or 200 years. So we have to be sure that we don't miss the chance to do what we need to do to basically preserve our lifestyle. And if Alberta used to be the place, it could be the place, and if you come here and work hard, you can earn your way and have a really good living. And that was what I grew up with, and that's what I expected to continue to be. So at any rate, let's start here. This is the question. This is the question that I put to Elections Alberta. This is the question I put into the people of Alberta. Do you agree that the province of Alberta should cease to be a part of Canada to become an independent state? Just be aware, and for clarity's sake, that does not mean 51st state. I have to answer that question 4 times a day. The other question I have to answer is, did you ask the U.S. for a $500 billion loan? And the answer is no. And I want to, while we're there, let's touch on it. Why the hell would I take the chance, if I was in a position to do that, which I am not, take a chance of borrowing that kind of money from somebody that's foreign and give them that kind of power over us, which is exactly what we're fighting. We have big government who has too much power over us, is absolutely overreaching. So why would we go from the frying pan to the fire? And I'm also going to share something with you. Why would Alberta need a $500 billion line of credit? Because we're basically not going to need any money at home. And if there's transition money that we need, we should be able to arrange that right here in Canada. And the other thing I dealt with this week is David Eby calling me a traitor. So I want to understand something, really, seriously. And I said this on a BC talk show this week. I said, well, Mr. Eby has a little bit to say about causing a little bit of divide in Canada. He won't let pipeline go from Alberta to the coast, and basically shutting Alberta down, or trying to shut Alberta down. And we're supposed to think that's okay, you do whatever you like. But should we try to change that situation, that's treason. And understand, we're on a legal path to accomplish what we need to accomplish. This is in the Canadian Constitution. Quebec's done it twice. And what's more democratic than getting a petition signed by the people of the province to make change within government? And they're saying that that could be possibly treasonous because we could have the nerve and the gall to go south and have a conversation with a partner, the trading partner, the biggest trading partner we have, that trades 88% of Alberta goods. So you would think that in that kind of a situation, that you should be able to at least have a conversation to see how they feel about it. And in actual fact, the conversation was more of a two-way conversation, was, can you really do this? Is what came from them. So, in essence, that's 100% what that conversation was all about. So that kind of gets you pretty much up to date with what's going on in our world. Oh, no, I have another story for you. So a guy walked into my business the other day, and my staff were, 2 ladies were sitting behind the desk, and the guy walks in with a rifle bullet and lays it on the counter and said, "This is for Rich." So, true story. So my girls were terrified, employees. So we have a little system going on in our store that if we have a shoplifter or something like that, we're on CCTV. So we took a picture of his face and we put it out there, and we had him in 12 hours. So we're going to charge him assault on the girls and death threatening. So just so you know, actually, if you called me and said you're a local businessman and a political person, so we're going to take this very, very seriously, and we're going to do what we can to stop this murder happening again. So that was our week last week. All right, we desire, and every Canadian desires, that the great trade of the prairies shall go to enrich our own people in the East, to build up factories in the workshops of Eastern Canada, and contribute in every way to its prosperity. That's how we started. And it continues today. It has never changed. So if we're going to have a conversation about basically breaking up a country, I think we should have a good reason to do it. And I think it should be clear to everybody in the room. So that's the path I'm going to go down tonight. I'm going to explain to you, step by step, what's going on, or what I believe is going on, where we're going, and actually how we got here, and actually how it started. And that's where we're at right now. I believe, and every Albertan, we desire, and every Albertan desires, that the great trade of Alberta shall go to enrich our own people in Alberta. Alberta and contribute in every way to our own prosperity. I'm going to ask you a question. I've heard people say, well, you guys are selfish. You're selfish. But I want you to understand something. I'm going to get to the mention slide a little bit further down the road here. The reason that we're richer is because we work more. That's why we pay more in CPP, because we work more. The average worker in Ontario works 36 hours a week. The average worker in Alberta works 50 to 55 hours a week. So it makes us selfish for working more. They don't feel bad about taking our money. That doesn't make them selfish, but it makes us selfish for daring to ask for actually what I consider to be a fair shake. Screw the West, we'll take the rest. Now that started the National Energy Program in the 80s. So their big concern at the time was that Alberta was going to become the center of Canada. Calgary was going to become basically the capital. So what they wanted to do is absolutely stop that. So what do? They taxed the hell out of us. And they tried to break our oil industry. That happened in the 80s. Pierre Trudeau, Sr., actually was the guy that instituted the National Energy Program to keep the wealth going to the east and keep Alberta poor. That philosophy has now changed. If you're in a business arrangement with anyone, for example, our federal government has multiple jobs. The key job for them is to keep the people safe, number one. The second thing is to enrich your own people. And finally, to not do any harm. To not hurt your people. I don't think any of those things are unreasonable. Let's see what's happening. Now, just understand this before I get started. The Confederation is working exactly the way they designed it. Nearly 3/4 of the Senate is appointed. The Senate is appointed. It's more than 3/4, it's like 90 senators, by Trudeau in the last 10 years. So understand this, it's a Liberal Senate. That's all I'm saying. It was within his purview to do that, and he did it. Western Canada has 11.7 million people and 24 senators. Atlantic Canada has a population of 2.4 million people and 30 senators. Alberta has a population of 4.8 million people and 6 senators. How's that? Right? And that's the way it is. The elected officials, 42 seats in BC, 14 and 14 makes 70. Add 34 to that, that's 104 seats. Ontario has 121. Only half of the country has less representation than Ontario. So that's why elections are done before they get here. Oh yeah. Does anybody in the room believe that we will ever see another conservative government in Canada? No. And that's a big problem. Before the election on April 28th, I was actually independent Alberta within Canada guy. on April 29th, I was absolutely convinced that Alberta was never going to be governed by Conservative government in Ottawa. So we have a choice to make, I had a choice to make as far as I was personally concerned. I was going to be governed by people that don't think like me, and people, that screw the West. Alberta is conservative every single time, so these people don't represent our views, and they don't represent our lifestyle, and they basically, by the way they treat us, don't like us very much. The Supreme Court, same thing. 2 justices for all of Western Canada, 3 in Ontario. And then you have to go further, 3 in Quebec, and 1 in the Maritimes, and they're all bilingual. So what does that mean? Bilingual people tend to vote liberal. I'm French Canadian. My grandparents were hardcore liberals. I, however, have never voted as a vote, which might be a surprise to everybody here. But back then, the liberals were quite moderate compared to where they are now. They were more in line with us, our conservative governments are today. So the Supreme Court, I was just talking about that, they don't think like us. The consecutive murder thing is something that I'm not as concerned about as that they determined that a 1-year mandatory minimum for child pornography depicting 3-year-olds is unconstitutional. So it's unconstitutional for them to give somebody that abuses a 3-year-old child sexually and puts it on the internet for everybody to see, a 1-year sentence is too much. That's not our people. We don't think like that. I don't think there's a man in this room that thinks like that. So that's just a symptom of what the people are at that point to judge us. That's the way they think. And in my world, that's a big problem. Equalization payments. We pay $13.3 billion a year in equalization. Quebec does not get to put its biggest industry in the balance sheet. So Alberta puts the oil patch in the balance sheet. As a consequence, Quebec is a have-not province, which is not true. Alberta, as a half province, gives $13.3 billion a year to Quebec. And understand this, it's year after year. Now here's the problem with that. And this was pointed out to me by actually the leader of the party, Quebec Left. He said they're buying your votes. They're using your money to buy votes for the Liberals. So per taxpayer in PEI, equalization is $6,000, $61.67 a year per taxpayer, $12,000 per home. In Nova Scotia, $5,800. In Brunswick, $6,500. Labrador, $729. Quebec, $28.51. And Manitoba, $58.97. And they're all liberal provinces.
Wow.
And here's the problem. In order to change the Constitution in Canada, you need 7 out of 10 provinces with and 50% of the population to agree. So do you think we could get 7 out of 10 to change the Constitution in favor of Alberta? Just to stop, let's just use stop equalization. So, and the next thing is we need the support of the House of Commons and the Senate. That won't happen. And Quebec has a veto. How does that work? They didn't even sign the Constitution, and they have a veto, so that we can't change the Constitution. I'm not mad at Quebec. They're doing a hell of a good deal negotiating on their behalf. Way better than us. But understand that. That power just doesn't make any sense to me. And we need the approval of the PMO appointed Supreme Court if we're going to make a change. Which also, what I'm seeing, is not going to happen. Canada pension. Okay. Canada pension, Alberta pays the shot. Everybody else contributes. The only over-contributor, the big over-contributor, is Alberta. See that red line on the left? That's us. That's money that we give more than everybody else. BC gives a little bit as well. Every other province in Confederation is a taker.
Wow.
Yeah, I agree with you. Wow. All right, so what happens is this. Our seniors, our workers, sorry, let's go with the workers. Our workers pay $9 billion a year to CPP. Our seniors collect $6. That $3 billion over contribution goes into a fund for Alberta seniors. Alberta seniors, according to the CPP Act, which is brought about by Ontario, are entitled to that over contribution plus interest anytime they want to call it back. That number, according to Bill Morneau, who was the former finance minister for the country, says at the time that the Lifeforce report was written was $230-some billion. 2 years later, with interest, it's now $400 billion because they say CPP earns 9.5%. At $40 billion a year. So let's just unpack that for a minute. Actually, our premier's asked for that number this week. She asked for that number this week. But my question is, why doesn't she just call it back and negotiate the number after? Because there's a time lapse involved in doing that. And that would be a real big asset for Alberta. So let's just say that they give us half, $200 billion. At the current interest rate, that's $20 billion, plus our workers contribute 9. That's $29 billion asset. In pension, because that money has to stay in pension. Right? So we're $29 billion a year that we're earning in pension. Our seniors are collecting 6. So we have a $23 billion surplus in pension. We could easily triple the pension and per year, and still put $11 billion in the fund and not touch the principal. Wow. And that's if they give us half. And in addition to that, we would have $200 billion to invest in Alberta projects, which they are not allowing CPP to do now, because they're not green projects. So they're taking all the money, the overage for Alberta, the $400 billion is an overage for Alberta, and they're not allowing them to invest it here. And also understand something else. You will not lose your Canadian citizenship in a free and independent Alberta. You will remain a British subject for life, or a Canadian, a subject of the Crown. That does not, you can hardly repeal it. You can add passports, but you can't get away from being Canadian. So, fortunately or unfortunately, your pension will follow you everywhere you go. They cannot cut your pension out legally. That's the key. Legally. And they don't follow the rules. So, but what I'm trying to tell you by that previous conversation is, our workers pay enough money every year to pay your pension and most of your OAS. So even if they take it away from us, we still have the ability to pay easily, and I'm sure we would. We lose $47 billion net to Ottawa between, let's just say, those numbers are depending whether they include pension and EI or not. Would go from 30 billion to 47 billion. But we have a surplus, a big surplus. What are they? I had a guy tell me last night. There's a certain amount of, so if you know the difference between $1 million and $1 billion is if $1 million in seconds is like several days, 11 days. And $1 billion is like 30 years, 31 years in seconds. So that's the difference between $1 million and $1 billion. So just understand how much that is. $1 billion will build a state-of-the-art hospital complete. So $30 billion will build 30 state-of-the-art hospitals in Alberta in the first year. That's good. Yeah, just understand that. That's how much money that is. When I became premier, I thought I could fix everything in 6 or 7 months, but everything's broken. At her level, what does that mean? Too corrupt to fix. And therein is the crux of our problem. Corruption. Corruption. That's the whole problem here. The whole problem here, I'm going to spend 20 minutes explaining to you how corrupt our government is. And that is the big problem. Our problem is not CO2. Our problem is not global warming. That's the window dressing. Our problem is government overreach and corruption. And we have a choice. We have 2 choices, actually. We can let them do it, or we can decide not to let them do it. And you can decide to keep the money that they're taking, or let them keep it. And in order to do that, we're going to have to probably do some work and make sure that, because they don't want to lose it. So let's just see that Danielle is trying really hard to make this country work. And she has said in public and in private that she's a independent Alberta within Canada girl, and she's the Queen of the province, so I will give her that leeway. She can do that. What she did do, though, is she allowed us to do this. The UCP has allowed us to go down this path. And that what that has done for me is it basically controls everything. Because nothing else matters as far as we're concerned, passing a bill here, passing a bill there, to change our lifestyle, when we have an opportunity to change everything and build that better. Well, let's use their words. So, one of the big problems we have in Canada, and Mr. Eby, let's go back to him.
The traitor!
That's the guy. There should be aware of 4,000 organized crime groups operating within Canada. Groups, families, break that down by province. 325 per province. And the end of that video, which is our government officials asking the RCMP how many organized crime families there are in Canada. The response was 4,000, and he, the gentleman on the right, my right, said, like families or total people? I said families. And the end of that was, and 130 in government. And believe me, I heard it right. Because from my perspective, I was going to make the best slide that there ever was. I'll get them to play that and say, hey, look at that. They're confirming, RCMP is saying, there's 130 organized criminal groups in government. And I'm not sure, and I heard it, but they took it off. You can't find it anywhere. You can imagine. So would you believe it, though?
Yeah.
So Mr. Eby only checks 1% of the cargo that comes into Vancouver and Brisbane. 1%. Alberta has in Fox Creek, down that area, they found a super meth lab that had 7,600 kilograms of fentanyl-making chemical that came in through BC. And these super labs are all over the West Coast. And the reason that these organized crime families are here is because we have no money laundering and no racketeering laws. And that's Mr. Eby, all of us traders. I'm picking on him a little bit, right? So what I'm saying is, he allows the chemical that will make fentanyl come into the country, and he's got very close ties with the Communist Party of China. And you don't have to look hard to find them. So I'm going to challenge you to go find them. Mr. Rath, my buddy Jeff, did an interview with CTV, that's actually famous, and Moose is Loose is on there, down all the things that he said. Because Jeff talks a lot, and talks fast, and I'm going to talk with him for a minute. So the one thing about Jeff is, as polarizing as he is, and he never doesn't tell the truth. As hard as it is for people to listen, and as bombastic as he can be, he's telling the truth. So that video is a perfect example of what he's saying, and he talks 100 miles an hour, so that guy, the Moose guy, wrote it down into parts, and I highly recommend you go watch it. It's iconic. It really is. All right, so what happens since we got organized crime in Canada? Human trafficking has increased 210%. Extortion, 429%. Child pornography, 565%. All crimes associated with organized criminals. Wow. So is that making our country safer, like I discussed with you at the beginning, which is the job of the federal government, or not? Let's not talk about the last 10 years, because it was the most discouraging 10 years that I've had in the history of my being. So let's just understand this. Alberta is the richest piece of real estate in the world. We have trillions of dollars in assets, almost no liabilities, and it would be naive to believe that the people of the rest of the world do not want it. because wars historically have been fought for what your neighbor has, so that they can afford to fund their programs at your expense. Now, without thinking very hard, would it be reasonable to assume that the communist Chinese don't have the resources that we have here? Would it be reasonable to assume that even Europe doesn't have the resources that we have here? And it would be also reasonable to assume that us as Albertans don't take it for granted and stand up and say, no, this is ours, you can't have it. And if our federal government was facilitating that, I don't think it would be a large stretch to say that we don't want to do business with you anymore. When plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men in a society, over the course of time, they create for themselves a legal system that authorizes it and a moral code that glorifies it. And an audit of $187 billion worth of liberal infrastructure spending finds 20,000 missing projects. That means the projects were paid for, but not built. 20,000. Did anybody go to jail? No. Is there anybody in the room that believes the liberal government is actually stealing from us?
Yes.
Hands up, please. All right, so look around. So we're acknowledging that this is a very big problem. We know they're stealing from us. So we know they're criminals. Right? Are we going to deal with it is the question. Let's go more. Gilbo, $254 million siphoned into his own company. Mr. Trudeau had to resign, over $400 million missing in his green slush fund. We scandal, how many? $800 million. $250 million for a vaccine factory that never produced a vaccine. We're not even trying very hard, and I don't know anything, and I'm well over $1 billion. And when you do find them guilty over the Arrive Camp thing, they seal it for 75 years. So that's the judiciary. That's the second time we bring them up. That's two very good examples of why things around here don't work well. And Mr. Trudeau spent $11,000 million on overseas gender programs.
Oh. Yeah.
So is money laundering possibly an issue in this country? Here's the problem with that. We run deficit budgets every year. So would it be out of the question for the Prime Minister of the country to say to a country, well, we're going to give you $1 billion and we want $900 million back? What do you think the odds are they get back? And it's out of the country and they can't trace it. And it's borrowed money, so you have to pay interest on it. Right? How do you spend $11,000 million on gender programs? You know, even $110 million. There's 193 countries in the United Nations. If we give them $2 million each, that's $400 million. That's 10-6 to go. Right? Foreign interference is the greatest strategic threat facing Canada's national security. And I'm going to get my mic set up for this.
Security threat to Canada's China. We're heartened by the leadership of President Xi Jinping
Check the dates.
and the speed with which our relationship has progressed in recent months. I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
So there you go. So in April, they were our biggest enemy, the biggest security threat to the country, and I've been made aware that even since the Korean War, there's never been a treaty signed with China. So we fought them in the Korean War. So they're still basically, you know, even though there's no hostilities between us, considered an enemy that we're at war with. And what I'm trying to tell you is, how can it be 6 months before that they're our greatest security threat, and then we're going to make up a business deal with the very same people in China and going to claim that they're going to change our entire political system with them as a partner, obviously. And how does that look for us? Is my question. And how does it go from there to there in 8 months? Is also my question. So let's go there. Trudeau must reveal which 11 federal candidates China reportedly aided in his election, the last one, which he won with like 35 or 38% support, if I recall correctly. So you would have to have 38% pretty well placed votes in order to form government with that kind of support. But he said it didn't affect the results. Well, my question is, what it did affect is this: election integrity. And no matter what, our whole system is based on election integrity. So if we have no faith in our system, what happens? People stop voting. Right? Because they say, well, there's no point, my vote doesn't count, and they're cheating. So he couldn't find any of these 11 MPs, so I found one for him. Mary and G. She had a federal subsidy program that gave away more than $130 million on the promise of growing business startups and creating jobs, and achieved neither one. Look at the look on her face. I don't know where that money went. Right? She was being asked there, where's the money? There's another $130 million to add on to the top of what we're talking about. Where's the money? I don't know. She didn't go to jail. Is our government above the law? No, it shouldn't be. But are they? Did we elect kings? And there, in a nutshell, is our biggest problem. They're treating the country like it's their own business and they can do anything they want with it. Our laws and rules say that you cannot do this. You cannot take $130 million and transfer it to yourself, because it's not your money. It belongs to everybody in the room. Right? And again, just to emphasize, we're paying interest on the money. And here's where it all starts. Let's go down the journey. Mr. Trudeau is not a buffoon. Mr. Trudeau absolutely understood every single thing he was doing, every single step of the way. He said, this is 2015 now, there's no core identity, no mainstream in Canada, and consequently that makes us the first post-national state, New World Order, 10 years ago. 10 years ago. He said a post-national state is a state without borders, ruled by globalist elites that don't live here. Post-national state, after nation. So that's what he said. And here's the ring that controls all the rings. In 1954, there was a statute passed in the Criminal Code of Canada that said it was illegal for media to lie to the people. However, in 2019, C-39 changed that, making it legal for them to lie to you. So now we understand two things. We understand they're stealing from us, and we understand that they're lying to us. There's no question. And I have to forgive a lot of people, because people my age live their whole lives believing the media and thinking that the media could not lie because they would go to jail. However, those people still think the media is telling the truth because they don't know anything about Bill C-39. You'd have to come here to find that out, right? Because they don't publicize that. Step one of the conversion. Step two. Now, before I start here, I've been accused of being racist over this. It's about a Financial Post. I'm not blaming immigrants for coming here. Canada has a reputation of being a country that you could come here, work hard, and absolutely earn a good living. And you can be independent. You have freedom of speech, freedom of choice, freedom of religion, all manner of that. And I don't blame them one bit for wanting to come here if that was the truth. Because that's why we're here. And that's what we're talking about tonight. That's what we want to bring back. The problem is uncontrolled immigration, and that's their part. That's the problem. The problem isn't the immigrants, the problem isn't who they are, the problem is uncontrolled immigration, no matter who that is. So the very concept of a nation founded by European settlers is offensive to me. Old stock white Canadians are an unpleasant relic and quite frankly replaceable. And we'll replace them. So somebody suggested to me that Mr. Trudeau would be stupid enough to say that. And I don't know the answer to that. But I do know one thing. What does actions show? His actions show that he's absolutely doing that. So in 2015, when Mr. Harper was in power, that line on the far left of that box shows what our immigration rate is pretty steady, from 2000 to 2015. But what happens in the next 10 years? 15 million immigrants into Canada. All adults. Right? Half of our workforce in 10 years. Going in. And another 1.95, 1.94 million this year.
Wow.
Toronto has just reached the point where there's more immigrants that live there than natural born Canadians. And Mr. Carney just came out and said, that's genius. So if you believe that this is accidental, let me help you out with something from the United Nations. Mr. Peter Sutherland, who worked for the United Nations, said this: we must use migration to turn the English people into a minority in England. This will allow us to undermine the identity of the native English and import a new majority that will end the very idea of England. This is critical for globalism to take hold of England. And here's the migration replacement paper, 177 pages, United Nations paper. Conscious effort to do this. They're doing this on purpose. We have to build an Edmonton every year to accommodate the level of immigration that's coming to Canada. We have not got the infrastructure to support that kind of migration. They know that. And without being unreasonable, I want to ask you a question. If the goal of this whole project, and I don't know that it is, was to basically take over Alberta or Canada, would you think it unreasonable on that 1.95 million that they could import 150,000 soldiers a year? That's not unreasonable. I was in West Edmonton Mall 2 weeks ago Sunday before the last time I was in Calgary, and there were 6 very fit, non-English speaking Chinese boys trying to pay for something at a drugstore with 6 brand new winter jackets in their pocket. So I said, I can be like this. I looked at that, I said, those guys are in good shape. Those guys look very confident. That doesn't mean they're soldiers. What I'm saying to you is that's what happened in my brain. My brain immediately went there. So is our government taking care of our security by allowing people to come into Canada at will? I talked to a lady that Jeff referred to me. She called me and she said that she had just been laid off and she was one of the people that processed immigrants. Her and 2,300 of her workers got laid off. Canada, this is the next step. That's 33 taxes, the highest in the world. Can you remember, cumulatively, as you, the last time the federal or provincial government passed a law that actually made you richer and it was something you could see? Right? What we're talking about here, and I'm going to confirm the numbers, don't have a heart attack, Dennis. I'm going to confirm the numbers here, that what we're saying is that on day one, or very soon after, we're going to give you up to 20% of the federal income tax that you pay in Ottawa, so you can keep it in your pocket. We have school teachers striking for 4% raise. We're talking 20% on day one of money that we've never seen here in Alberta, because it goes directly to the feds. Not going to cost us anything to do. We'll just absolutely take it off your check, so you keep it. And the other thing is that we're actually talking about doubling old pension. So the two things that we're proposing moving forward would be a 20% increase or decrease in your tax bill and doubling old age pension. So here's all those taxes. carbon tax, personal income tax, corporate income tax, GST, excise taxes, fuel excise tax, alcohol, tobacco, cannabis, excise on everything else, customs duties, air travelers, security tax, luxury tax, provincial, territorial tax, capital gains tax, you're getting tired. Land transfer tax, media tax, regulation tax, CPP tax, business tax, estate tax. Ridiculous. Nowhere in the world do you pay those kind of taxes, except here. And then, what happens this spring? Mr. Carney comes to Alberta and says, we're going to build a pipeline, we're going to sign an MOU that says that we're going to increase your carbon tax 6-fold. 6 times. Which will, what will that do? That will increase the production cost of a barrel of oil from $6 to $10. How does that help Alberta? And the other thing that they're going to do is they're going to build pathways, which is a carbon sucking machine to suck the CO2 out of the air in the province that has 600 billion trees and all manner of grassland, and it's going to cost you $20 to $50 billion for that project, which is not going to accomplish a damn thing. They call it a license to produce oil. And here's the next step. Inflation. So we've got their tax, they lied to you, we're bringing in people to replace you. Now they want to take some money away, they're taxing the hell out of you. So now we're step 4. I'm going to lose my track of all these steps here, but so just so you understand. So all of that is printed money. If you double the effective money supply in the country, you have the value of it. So double the money supply, the money that you had is worth half. You've seen those pictures of people in other countries with wheelbarrows full of bills to buy very little. That's the path that we're taking. Mr. Trudeau printed $328 billion in 2021 during COVID with no audit. What do you think happens to that? Based on what you understand from what I've been showing you. So here's the problem. The problem is they're printing all this money, and if you're in business and you're borrowing money, you have to have an ability to pay that money back, which is more money than you currently have, because you needed to borrow the money so you could get better. So if you had to borrow this money to make the business bigger, you would have to earn more. So what does our government do? Puts a cap on oil and gas. So they're increasing the money supply and killing your ability to repay it back. Right? Very simple. A cap on emissions is ultimately a cap on production and prosperity. So every single thing that I'm talking about affects your prosperity directly, except the 20% raise that I just gave you. Right? That also affects your prosperity. And why would they do this? Nowhere else in the world is cutting oil production. The demand for oil is going up. Nowhere else in the world would turn Germany and Japan down when they came to get natural gas from us, and our Prime Minister said, no, it's not in our business plan. So what is their business plan? They don't want to make us richer. They don't want to increase the GDP, and I'm going to get to a slide that shows that. They're consciously trying to break the problems. And there's no other way to look at it. And they won't let a tanker go down the west coast. But they'll let tankers come down the St. Lawrence and bring 1 million barrels of oil a day to Quebec. Who gets $14 billion a year from Alberta, but buys oil from Russia, Saudi, and everywhere else? How's that work? I want you to understand something. 1 million barrels of oil extra a day would create a lot of jobs and would create a lot of wealth in Canada. That would increase our oil production by 20%. Right there, right on the spot. And we have trillions of barrels of oil in the ground. And I learned something the other day that I didn't know, so I'll share it with you, is that our oil is oil that makes it easy to make diesel fuel out of, way better than Texas crude. Because our oil is dirty oil, but actually there's a benefit to it. All the byproducts that you can pull out of our oil are not in the other stuff. So our oil should actually be worth more money, not less. So here's the thing that they're using to stop oil production in Canada. Carbon taxes cost Canadians billions over 5 years, hurting the economy while reducing CO2 emissions by 11.9 gigatons. China produces 11.9 gigatons every day and a half, and they pay no carbon tax. Neither does USA, neither does the USSR or Russia. None of those people pay carbon tax, just us. Neither do the Americans. And they're burning coal. Where does the coal come from? Here. They ship all that coal from the port of Vancouver to China. And they buy our coal at a discounted rate because it's supposed to be bad fuel. Kind of all works together, doesn't it? The best coal in the world is produced here in Alberta. They're buying it at a discounted rate from the country. They're producing the CO2 that's crushing us. It doesn't stay floating over top of China. It goes all over the place. If it was a real problem, we'd actually deal with it. And here, what we've got happening is none of them pay carbon tax except us. And there it is. Look for all those other countries out there. And here's the bills that they put in place to actually stop oil production. Blocking pipelines, tag the ban on the West, lost oil and gas investment. We lost $89 billion worth of investment in Canada when Mr. Carney became Prime Minister. And I'll have a slide on it. But here's the point of this slide. The carbon tax is actually ruled illegal in Alberta, but the PMO appointed Supreme Court reversed that. So even if we win in court, we can't win. And here's the whole thing summed up in one slide. Norway has a $1.95 trillion oil fund, US dollars. 1.95 trillion US. Alberta is $100 billion in the hole. Norway produces 2.1 million barrels of oil a day, and Alberta produces 4.6 million barrels of oil a day. Where's the money? Where's the money? Do you think we'll be okay? Just asking. 88% of our trade goes south. But you better not go down there talking about it. Just saying. So, are we landlocked? We're landlocked today. And we got 88% of our trade going south. I told Mr. Evie via a radio thing that if we become a free and independent province, a country, we would stop the trains at the border. And I also said this, the adults in the room understand something. If BC wants to ship 70% of everything that comes into its ports through Alberta, which they do, it wouldn't be unreasonable for us to be able to ship our product back the other way, would it?
Yes.
No. So that's when they said that I'm not very much for Canadian unity. I said, well, I think it would be a fair deal if it reciprocated. All right, if they think they're just attacking the oil patch, you're dead wrong. Every time that carbon tax goes up, the price of fertilizer goes up, the price of diesel goes up, the price of your groceries goes up, every single thing that we do goes up. Bill C-293 says that in the case of another emergency, the government is going to be able to come to your farm, seize your land, and murder you. And they can't run a farm and they don't know how to feed a cow. So what's the purpose of that? So the purpose of this next little section on this presentation is going to be to show you and that you should be careful about the laws that these people are trying to pass. Bill C-293 is a deal. And what did they do? They killed all the ostriches. 315 birds to stave off an avian flu epidemic is what they said, but they didn't test any of the birds. They wouldn't let them test them, but it was okay to shoot them, which they did. Let's talk COVID for 1 minute. COVID, we asked, the Premier wrote a report on COVID, the COVID-19 pandemic response. I would suggest that if you want to have a really good idea of what may have actually happened in COVID, that the Pfizer documents by Naomi Wolf, a confirmed lefty, is something that you should read. Required reading for everybody. It clears up a lot of misconceptions on that. And because it's so polarizing, that's all I'm going to say. COVID restrictions are about political control and power. All right. If you resist one thing in your entire life, resist digital ID and digital currency. Everybody in this room, I'm sure, understands that, but do you know anything about C8? Bill C8 allows Melody Jolie to kick you off the internet. So how could you possibly pay your bills? Without due process, without informing you. Right? That's what C8 says. C9, I have to read to you because it's so far out there, I have a hard time believing it. All right, this is a very dangerous bill. It uses the concept of naming a group, a political entity, the order in council names a group, a hate group, pursuant to section 83.01. From there, the members of the group are all guilty by virtue of possession of the symbol. Where Mark Miller, a liberal, in debate names the Bible and Torah as hate, and states there is no legitimate religious defense. It means the group is Christians, Torah Jews, and because he said other religious texts, the Quran. This enables the government to target the religious individuals as part of the group, so it can discriminate against any part of these groups on whether it decides to do it or not. This is exceptionally evil, according to this, broad and typical only of communist countries. All right, now listen to this. This is where I find this really interesting. So that's attacking freedom of religion. Right? That's attacking freedom of religion. So if you own a Bible, it's a hate symbol, and if you're part of the Christian group, then you're guilty. And then what they say is that the offense was committed. The means by which the offense was committed is the individual. So you have a choice, either have that or don't have that. And this is what, so the penalty for it is a forfeiture clause. So the forfeiture clause is what they can take away from you. So is it your house, your bank account, is it your life? You are the person by means of which the offense was committed. This is the most problematic forfeiture clause ever written. What happens next? May, in addition to any other punishment imposed, be ordered by the presiding provincial court judge or judge to be forfeited to His Majesty in right of the province in which that person is convicted for disposal. They actually wrote that. For disposal. Every religious group in Canada said this thing should be dumped in its entirety, including and especially Muslims. Not just Christians. They've burned 400 and some Christian churches here in the last 2 years. Don't worry about that. I would worry about this. And here's where this comes from. This is 100 years old. Socialism is precisely the religion that most overwhelmed Christianity. In the new order, socialism will triumph by first capturing the culture via infiltration of schools, universities, churches, and the media by transforming the consciousness of society. Have we seen that here? Yes. So nobody's denying this. No. We could not have had this discussion 6 months ago. Understand that. I've been doing this for 2 full years, and I know that I would have caused a lot of trouble to put that up there. Mr. Poilievre's got a slide that's coming up towards the end, and he acknowledges everything that I'm talking about. Red flag. Does anybody understand what the red flag rule is? The red flag rule is your neighbor can tattle on you and tell the RCMP that you have guns. The RCMP can then go to your house, seize all your guns without a warrant, and then you have to go to them and prove that you're not guilty. Right? And understand this, the amnesty is over at the end of October. And I meetings with the Premier, begging her to make an Alberta gun license. And the reason I'm doing that is because on November 1st, every Albertan that does not turn his gun in becomes a criminal. If it's a restricted gun, understand there's categories. So there's 350,000 PALs in Alberta. It would not be, because I sell guns, it would be hard to imagine that half of them have restricted guns. So 175,000. So it would be 175,000 Albertans on November 1st become criminals. So then what happens? They have to take your pal away because you're a criminal. So then take your pal away, you're no longer able to own any of the guns that you have. And so it would give them the ability to come to your house and get them all. The other thing that's going to happen is they're going to take your passport away. Because as a criminal, you can't have a passport. So that's a problem. And if you go to Saskatchewan and get stopped, you're a criminal with a gun offense, you can go to jail for 3 years. And this is all legally acquired property, and this is our government passing these laws. And this one is not going away. They told us it's the last time there's going to be an amnesty. So, do guns kill people? Maybe people kill people, but let's look at that. Honduras, with a population of 8.2 million, bans citizens from owning guns. It has the highest homicide rate in the world. Switzerland requires citizens to own guns. Not only do they require it, they send their kids to school to become soldiers. After 2 years, they get to go home with their fully automatic weapon, boy or girl.
Yeah.
So they have 2 fully automatic weapons in every home in Switzerland, and soldiers that know how to use them. I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
I really think that that would be a real good thing for Alberta and Albertans. It's universal, and they have the lowest homicide rate in the entire world because it only makes sense. They're aware, they're trained, and they're armed. And Danielle says if you don't want to get shot or beaten up, don't break into people's houses. That's castle law. We tried to get that law passed in our Bill of Rights, but they said no. But the Premier is endorsing it there. So one of the MLAs actually had somebody out on her balcony, and she was all about castle doctrine. Same as Doug Ford when he had a couple of people break into his house while he was in it. He said you should be allowed to shoot people that break into your house. I agree. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, that's the Second Amendment. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So you should be able to defend yourself and your home within the limits of the law of bad people.
Exactly.
And if you cannot, do you have any real freedom? And I'm going to tell you why that law was passed originally. So that they could protect themselves from government. That's what that was really initially about. Because they had just finished fighting the British, which were the most powerful nation in the world, and the Second Amendment came by right after the end of that war. All right, GDP. Our economy grew 1.4% in the last 10 years. There is absolutely no way you can do that unless you try in Canada. That's just more confirmation that what they're doing is consciously killing our economy. And at that point, Mr. Trudeau has Mr. Carney the keys, so we'll spend 10 minutes looking into Mr. Carney. $86 billion in investment left Canada, I already told you that. And Mr. Carney says in his book, which I think is going to be required reading for me and everybody else, that Western society is morally rotten and has been corrupted by capitalism, which has brought about a climate emergency. And this, he claims, requires rigid controls on personal freedoms. But I want you to go down to the bottom. So rigid controls on personal freedoms is what Mr. Carney intends to do to you. That's New World Order. More control over you. He says it. That's what he says. It's his book. He wrote it. And what he also wants is a technocratic dictatorship, justified by climate awareness, of course. There's a reason for it. So what a technocratic dictatorship is big business, unelected business, that actually controls the government and the country and uses the country as its own business, like they're doing. So they're taking our money like it's theirs, spending it like they want it to do, pretending that they follow the rules, and in the meantime, getting powerfully rich and breaking you. Right? That's the deal. And Industrial carbon tax we talked about, and when the genius got elected, according to all the people in the East, our economy shrank more. And what did he do? Pumps $33 billion into non-productive bureaucracy. Instead of building a pipeline, say from Alberta to the coast, which will cost $32 billion, creating thousands of jobs and billions of dollars in revenue for Alberta and Canada for years and years to come. But he chose to invest it, put it in bureaucracy so they would be dependent on him. Most people will vote Liberal, because that's who's paying the bills. And Mr. Carney only has 103 ethics violations, followed by Justin's, 82, 83. These are crimes. We're putting up with that. These are actual crimes. You cannot, as a prime minister of a country, benefit from a business that you own because you're making the decisions. And what did Mr. Carney do? He's not betting on Canada either. He took all his money and moved it to the USA. Right? So he's not betting on us. He knows what he's going to do. He's going to consciously try to hurt us. Since he's become prime minister, 42 contracts have been allotted, and all have been with Brookfield. That's illegal. Even if it's 21, even if it's 2, it's illegal. And he pledged $4.3 billion to the Ukraine as a G7, and 2 days later, Brookfield got a $4.7 billion contract to rebuild the Ukraine. 2 days later. 12,500 people dead from me. Highest per capita assisted suicide in the world. They harvest the organs and take the blood. A lot of those organs have to be harvested while people are still alive. UBI. This is the thing that killed Venezuela when it was a free democratic country. They promised the people guaranteed income. And they took it away 2 or 3 years later when they had to pay it, right? That's the deal. The deal is in with the promise, out with the bullet. That's the way it works. So here's the thing. They're telling they want 16-year-olds to vote, and then when you turn 17, every Canadian, no matter what, you work or not, will get $2,000 a month. And that's guaranteed basic income. So let's take this a step further and look into, say, Canada Pension. So, I'm not knowing this, but I'm guessing. So if they say that we're going to give everybody a $2,000 a month check, that would be double pension for every pensioner, right? And then they wouldn't need the pension fund anymore. So they take that asset and do with it as they please, and then not pay you 2 years down the road.
Oh my God.
Right? That's not a big stretch. Does anybody in the room believe that the federal government's tampered with our pension money? $400, $500 billion.
Yeah.
Corruption is the problem. Here's Pierre Poilievre's quote, just in case you think I'm the only one that feels this way. Nazi socialism, Soviet socialism, narco-socialism, and all other forms of socialism move at different speeds, but always to the same destination. Impoverished hell for the many, that's you, and special powers and wealth for the few. And Solzhenitsyn said this in the 30s in Russia. It's about lying. We know they're lying. They know that they are lying. They even know that we know they're lying. We also know that they know we know they're lying too. They, of course, don't care. That's basically what it is. This is 100 years old. So this system has been around for a long time. So, how do we fix it? That's what we're doing right now. How do we fix this? How do we get rid of these people? We're very fortunate. We have a legal path. We don't have to have an armed revolution to get out of this mess. We have a legal path given to us by a former Canadian government, and it includes the Clarity Act that says you should have the opportunity to have a citizens' right referendum. If you get enough signatures, then you can take this to a vote. You can vote your way out. We have to win. So I have a friend, Jim St. Clair, who presented in Calgary with me a week ago, who was a soldier that was in every war that we've been in for the last 30 years, as a sniper, as special forces. He said, as a soldier, the price that we have paid and that we are paying and always will pay for freedom is blood. We have the opportunity to buy our freedom with time and commitment. So this is what I'm asking you for. I'm asking each and every single one of you to go to the stayfreealberta.com website and sign up to be a canvasser. Because there's people that only you know that you can get to sign a referendum. We did this with the Alberta pension plan. We had note sheets with 12 blanks in them, and it took us months and months to catch up because we were right. Everybody in the room is people they know that they can sign. We need over 1 million signatures to really make a statement here. Anything over 500,000 will be magnificent. So if we really want to get this thing done, we all need to do it together. So the path is clear. The path is clear. We have the opportunity to do it. And if you cannot sign people up or go door knocking, you can also sign up to be a phone volunteer and you can call people. That's the other thing. Not everybody has the fortitude to do the things that need to be done. There's lots of you that do. So we're asking for your time. We're asking for your help. We can win this with your help. Thank you very much.
Okay, if you have a question, what we're going to do here is, because we only have one microphone, we'll bring Dennis Kelm up here as well to answer some questions. And Mitch, you can stand right here. If you have a question, you can line up at $10. Is that correct, Gina? Yes. That's right. So if you could throw some money in, it will really help out the cause. You're going to pass the bucket up and down the aisles. That would be terrific. So if you'd like to line up right here, if you have a question, we can get Mitch and Dennis.
All forms of federal lending, whether it be CMHC or whatever. If that's something to replace those programs with equivalents in Alberta, you'd have to move your loan from the Canadian system into Alberta system, and we would offer terms I think at least as good as what you have today. So essentially it moves over.
Thank you. Your name, please?
My name is Warren Schmelz. I guess I want to say my friend of mine asked, he said to me, Canada wants so much from Alberta. They want Alberta to be disabled. They want to take an arm and a leg, and all I want Alberta to do is get Canada with a finger. I look at the numbers, I see the videos and everything online. It looks like the numbers are going to be there for the petition. We're going to get this thing going. It looks like it's going to be a vote. And I'm in a position where I feel like it's like I'm going to jump out of an airplane, but on the way down, I'm going to try and figure out what parachute I'm supposed to be wearing. And so I guess the thing is that, we've seen people like Bruce Parody with his Constitution. I don't know if you've read it. Okay. And the only thing I'd add to that is you've got to be an Alberta born if you want to serve, period. But the real issue is, if this referendum, we win this thing, who negotiates for us? Because we have a premier who says, I'm a federalist, and I want a prosperous Alberta in Canada. If I'm jumping out of the airplane called Canada and I want to land in a republic called Alberta, and I look up, is a parachute a federal parachute or is it an independent parachute? What's that look like?
So the first thing you have to understand, and I have an answer for you, okay, so you have to take a chance to win anything. You're going to have to look at the situation here with the most educated, probably, people in the world, the most productive people in the world, the fact that we have all infrastructures already built. But on day one, the Premier will become the Prime Minister, and the MLAs will become MPs, and the transition is seamless. She's always said that she is an independent Alberta living in Canada, but she's also said that she will honor the results of the votes. And if you listen to her, she said many she told me that in private conversation as well. She's also told me that I referred to the fact that I just changed sides 6 months ago, that she's very disappointed in me because I changed sides, but I explained to her that I'm okay with her being boss, and I'm also okay with the fact that we leave Canada because I don't see any other choice, and I'm not Prime Minister, and I don't have to cater to the whole province, I just have to cater to you guys, because I like you guys a whole bunch, and I don't want you guys to be in a communist society, and that's the way I was. So yeah, so she will transition to become the boss. The people that are there running government will continue to run government until we have a constitutional conference on day 60, is what we've decided, correct? And then we have a vote to elect a new government with the new rules 10 months after that, which will be absolutely in sync with her and her term of the provincial election.
So this is a process that is.
This is a process that's new, but that's a process that we're planning. So Dennis is reaching for Mike.
Well, I was gonna say, there's a bunch of other things that need to happen right away. So Mitch is completely right. She's basically in power, she's the elected official. But related to that is, there's gonna be a sequence of laws that have to happen very quickly. One of the ones that matters to me a lot is we have to redirect deductions from pay and tax payments into Alberta bank accounts basically immediately. There will probably be another act instituted literally on day one that says all existing Canadian laws continue in force until such time as they are replaced. We are actually putting together a list of all the laws that apply in Alberta and have essentially a hit list. This one's got to be totally replaced, this is a major rewrite, this one's a tweak, and this one's fine as it is. So all those things are being glued together over the coming months, and will end up being with a transition plan that allows us to move. Is it a parachute that's perfectly done now? No, but it's got all the main pieces, and it's going to take it down as soft as we can.
But my issue is that you're not aimed at something.
Oh no, where is it?
But I mean, as a person, if I want to support independence, if I'm going to be supporting independence on a vote, I need to know that I'm working towards a target, and not some esoteric, I'm just getting out the door and I'm hoping for something.
So what we're asking for is for you to sign for vote. When we get to the nuts and bolts of what's going to happen after, is going to be the next stage when we're in action campaign. Okay, I mean, I shared some of that with you, and we may come out with our constitution, we're going to actually discuss that probably tonight. So we're going to, after this event, so we've decided to hold it off a little while, because we have so much momentum going on now, that if the momentum slows down a little bit, then we'll release our discussion paper on a new constitution and a new path forward. So it's all done. So then Dennis wrote it, thanks to him very much. Dennis, I was just an observer. I got to sit there and watch it happen.
Your name, please.
Drayton. I was wondering if you would be able to summarize exactly why separatism is the answer, instead of possibly using our power and strength as a province to, one, raise the treatment of our province within Canada, and then also possibly using that change or inspiring change amongst other provinces to just raise Canada altogether. Essentially, why is separatism the answer?
So why is separatism the answer? Because there's no other path. There is no other path. We can't negotiate with criminals. We have literally no power. We do not control our borders, so therefore we cannot tariff other people so that we can take care of ourselves. We can't negotiate with the Americans because we have no power to do it. So if we wanted to increase our production, we can't even do that because the federal government is creating laws to cap our production. So they're capping our production so that we can't produce more, so that you can't have a better job. They're also controlling our borders, so we can't tariff the other people, but they can treat us badly, but we have no way to fight back. And so they've had the opportunity to fix Alberta for 125 years. And all they've ever succeeded in doing is transferring trillions of dollars from here to there. Is trillions accurate? Trillions accurate. So I'm just making sure that that's the case. So they've been stealing from us since 1904. They're used to it. They understand that this money comes to them every year and it's guaranteed. And we work really hard to do it. But they've never taxed us 44%. My dad used to pay 6% tax when he was first in business. It's 44 now, and if you're earning a real living, it's 53. So 50 cents out of every dollar that you earn goes to them. Wow. Ridiculous. Okay? So the answer is, they don't want to negotiate with us. They will not negotiate with us. Did you see that slide where every province in Canada got a major project basically except us? Yeah. That's a choice. Did you see how Parliament is structured? That's also a choice. There's no alternative. There's no way.
Thanks. Thank you.
My question is, recently I saw Daniel Smith saying that the government trying to take some of the land in Alberta and make a national park. And Daniel said, not an inch of Alberta will become a federal land again. So when I believe we will separate, I am optimistic about the numbers and the people I've seen here. I was expecting a lot smaller group. I'm just curious what happens with land that is in the jurisdiction of the federal government. Like, because I told her that they grab land in Fort McMurray, said no more drilling, no more oil mining here. So what happens with the land that is already? Do we get autonomy over this, or is that something
That's a good one.
So just make sure I got your question straight. The question is, do we get the crown lands that Canada has and we hold them? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. So right now in 1930, from 1930, all crown interests were held by Canada, got transferred to Alberta. So Alberta is the crown, with the exception of places like parks, reserves, and military bases. Now I'm going to make an argument here. We own 12% of all the federal assets in Canada by virtue of our population. I want to make a deal with the rest of Canada. You keep all the stuff in your land, and I get 100% of what's in our land.
I'm just curious because they were talking about making grabbing more land to let's say for the purpose of preservation. Imagine they basically Fort McMurray, no more mining for oil or drilling, and that's something that
Sure. Well, I was going to say, they can't do that now because since the resources are in Alberta's hand, they have to go to Danielle and say, we want you to relinquish title for those lands back to Canada. Not going to happen. Not going to happen.
Your name, please.
My name is Mahmoud, and my question basically is regarding Canadian bonds, because basically Alberta backs them with their whole patch and everything in our economy, and to international investors and everything like that, the confidence in the Canadian bond goes down the drain if we leave. So how does that work, and how do we go about in the future? Because the way it looks like, Canada's going to go bankrupt if we
Cash them?
cash them beforehand.
So that's
Okay. So we believe, honestly, that once we win the referendum, the Canadian dollar is going to drop like a stone. Their bonds are going to reprice, their currency is going to be down, everything's going to be a problem because they probably don't have the real ability to service their debt. What can we do about that? There's a limited.
We'll be living next to a bankrupt nation.
Pretty much. But this is why we're going to switch to US dollars quickly to maintain our stability. It's also why we do things like recommend to people where you can move assets into non-Canadian currencies.
But I did see that when we do separate, we can still keep the Canadian dollar. So
No.
we won't have the Canadian dollar, it'll be Alberta.
US dollar.
All right, perfect.
Okay. Okay, so just go ahead and finish that. I want to ask a comment.
So I was going to say, we would switch for Alberta to be US dollars quickly, so we're not subject to Canadian swings. Well, and we can do things like support transfers from Canada for citizens at a fixed exchange rate. So we can do stuff like that. And then we would work on building an Alberta dollar, whatever you want to call it, that's based on mineral wealth, precious metals, and probably some crypto.
So my final comment on that is going to tie into everything I've been telling you. If Canada actually wanted to stay prosperous, why would they want to lose Alberta? Why would they want to take a chance on doing this? Because their agenda is to break the country. Which is exactly what I'm trying to say.
Your name, please.
Mr. P. So my question is, what type of electoral system would the new great Alberta have? Is it gonna be?
Sure, after you're here.
Are we gonna have elections? And you can answer, and I'll tell you why. We would have to have a dictatorial system. So let's say we get this great Republic of Alberta, prosperous as hell. We're gonna attract all the freeloaders,
Oh, yeah. Oh.
all that stuff. So let's say we do have this great republic with an electoral system. What is gonna happen to us when, or if, we get a bloated fool like Naheed Nenshi running us? Or a moron like Rachel Notley? Possibility, they're gonna have more money to play with prosperous Alberta.
Well, I wish I could point it out in that constitutional draft that we've been using lately. There's a few things. There are some things we can put in to the Constitution to prevent that. First is control on immigration, so all the fools don't come trotting over. Second thing is something called term limits. So no one can serve office for more than 2 terms. Fair ball. A lot of damage in 1 term, that's fair. The other thing is constitutional limits on government spending.
Yeah.
So for example, we say things like, we're putting in the Constitution things like, the government budget shall be no more than 20% of the previous 5 years' GDP average. So they can't make a big projection and say, we're gonna make $1 billion next year, therefore we can spend more. It's what it actually was over the last 5 years. So you limit the spending. We limit forms of taxation. Right now we're saying only flat rate income tax and consumption tax, point of sale tax. That's it.
We might lose a lot of the population too.
But anyway, there are other controls I can go into. I mean, this has been in my head for a number of months. But the guts of it is, while no constitution can prevent abuse by stupid people, we can get rid of them.
Thank you. Your name, please.
Hi, my name's Dave, and I have a comment followed by a question. Just want to remind everybody that after seeing the constitutional framework, the member of parliament seats that are supposed to be representative, if it's not clear before, I hope it certainly is now. One thing that I did want to point out is the American Revolution started with a 2% tax. 2%. And yet everybody is waiting for somebody else to fix their problem, somebody else to come save them. That's not going to happen. We see retirees like my mom getting $1,600 a month, worked her butt off her entire life. And yet we find the cost of living so high. Well, we haven't experienced real inflation yet. There's a lot of retirees in this crowd. If you want to experience real inflation, hyperinflation, stay in Canada. My question is how can we, the public, compel the Premier to act on a successful result post-referendum through lawful and legal means?
I got that one. Show up. So we're going to say, all right, she's not doing this. Everybody come to the legislature and take a spot on the step. Bulgaria just had 8 million people show up on their legislature, and the government resigned in 2 days. It is absolutely, so here's the thing. We have to make this too big to rig. That's why you have to go to work and sign people up for us, so we can get way more people than we expect, and then we will be able to call on all of those people to support us, to intimidate the government to do what they promised to do. Basically, that's it. So I'm the UCPCA chair, I totally understand the system. The other way that we can do it is to take over constituency association boards and get 22 of them to send the same identical message and call a special general meeting on Alberta independence that should be declared by the Premier. I've already done that once. So you can do it again, you can have a special general meeting on anything. That's how we fired Jason Kenney. That's exactly how we fired him. So what we need to understand is, it's doable, there's a path, and honestly, between us, let's just look at what just happened. We were gonna lose in court, and our UCP government passed Bill 13. The day after Carney got in power, our UCP government reduced the threshold from 600,000 on a constitutional question to 177,000. I don't know, just saying.
Your name, please.
Alex, my question for you is just what are your thoughts on, obviously, the sheriff's department has been expanded throughout. Do you think that it's a better option than the RCMP? I just want to know your general thoughts on it because I am currently in enrollment to join the RCMP. So, yeah.
Join the RCMP or the state police, but here's, I'm gonna share something with you. At my previous dinner in Bonnyville, not the last one, the one before, we did a straw poll to 800 people at $250 a plate. We asked them how many people in the room want to keep the RCMP. 10%. Okay. So the government is building its own police force. I understand the RCMP is mostly rural, right? Because all the cities already have their own police force. Right. So I'm understanding this, and it's not written down, that if you're an RCMP member, you would be able to transfer to the provincial police force and stay here with all the benefits that you've earned from being an RCMP officer in wherever you served for that long time, including your pension intact. So that's what I'm understanding. And the same thing, from what I understand, is what we'll offer military personnel. Okay, does that make sense?
Well, my question is, do you have this all in writing somewhere? Because watching it once and trying to memorize it is going to be tough.
Yeah.
So we need help with repetition. Repetition is going to help us remember this.
Yeah.
So the presentation that I did in Calgary a week ago is 25 minutes long. It's available. It's going to be on it's going to be on the State Free AV website. I'm sharing it now. So if you reach out to our people at State Free AV, I'll make sure that it's up there. I'll make sure that you'll be able to link it, and I'll make sure that you're able to share it. And thanks for the comment.
Your name, please.
Mary Vale. I have a comment and also a question for you. Thank you for tonight, first of all, and I agree there is no better time to rebalance our power here with Ottawa than today. And however this is going to turn out, the time is now. Time is now. I strongly believe that Daniel Smith is our Margaret Thatcher of Canada, so I'm hoping she will step up when we get to that point.
I am too.
One of my questions is with the Indigenous territories here and their holdings, how will that play out? Because what do you expect?
So, what do you do with the Indigenous people? Well, first of all, they have a choice. They can stay with Canada and the Indian Act if they want. I think it's a bad idea, but that's sort of the default option. We can also transfer the rights under that treaty under Alberta Crown care, under Alberta care, and continue to administer it the same way. We think the best option though is we can go to them and say, look, let's strike a new deal. Let's give you things you've never had before. Ownership of your own property. Some sort of compensation for the things that we promised you in the treaties. Let's give you a deal once and for all, make you equal citizens, equal partners in Alberta, and let you live your lives like all of us.
Another question?
I don't think it's well defined, and I think that's going to be a speed bump in our road. A lot of the people that are not for this, that I've encountered and are having a hard time getting that. They don't think we can do anything.
She's talking about Aboriginal people.
Yes, but it's a big part.
Let me help you there. Okay, so I live in the middle of 12 to 14 nations. The biggest problem historically with Aboriginal nations is chief of council. Yeah. So Frog Lake, which is a 1 hour drive from my door, is going through a major scandal right now with millions and millions of dollars missing, and it's ongoing. I have a story for you that you might enjoy and make the mood up a little bit. There was a chief in northern Saskatchewan that bought a truck with banned money, and he went to court, and the judge convicted him. And he said, well, why are you picking on me? All the other guys bought a truck. I know, but that's an actual true story. So what I'm trying to tell you is this. The federal government gives Aboriginals $80 billion a year, which is $10 billion more than it costs to run Alberta. Wow. So just understand that. There's a lot of people that have a lot to lose by changing this arrangement. Most of them are lost. So I've heard firsthand from regular Aboriginal people that they're looking at this as the best opportunity they've had in 100 years. So that's what I like about that.
I'm in my house every morning.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Any crowdsourcing?
Just
We're not friends.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, you're with friends here for sure.
What's our relationship with the Crown now that we're done here? I'd just like to say, I was married with my lovely wife in a Veterans Clubhouse, and I know for a fact that our military and our cops swear an oath to the Crown and not to the people and not to the land. What are we going to do about that? That's one question I want to ask you.
All right. So I also have a huge story for you. And this one. Okay, so first of all, Quebec voted completely unanimously to get rid of the Crown. Right? You know that. And they handed it to the King when he was doing that address in Parliament. So they basically dissolved the country. Really, literally. Right? Because it was supposed to be a crown, or, you know, we have allegiance to the crown. Quebec says, as part of the country, we're not doing it. And they unanimously handed it into them. So when we were presenting the value of freedom to the Premier, it was upside down. And she looked at it and she said, is there any chance that we can call it the Commonwealth of Alberta? Even though, and she did say this, but the Commonwealth doesn't mean that you have reasons to the Crown. So I looked it over, and that's what it said. So understand this. That oath is a real deal. Because I could tell by that reaction that the oath that she swore to the King, she thought was a real deal and could have consequences. So what I'm saying to you is, you're right. It is a real deal. But what I'm also saying to you is that we don't want anything to do with the Crown. Amen?
Yeah, okay, quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, but
The RCMP members that intend to come on as sheriffs or to serve, what about the guys that were involved with everything that happened? Are we going to allow those guys in the ranks?
Well,
that's all I got to tell you.
Well, I mean, there's certainly an intent in the value of freedom as much as possible to attract RCMP officers and military people to help us build the Alberta equivalents. But it's not just If you have an RCMP badge, you walk in. We gotta do the interview process, a check process, a background process, like we would do for anybody.
Yeah.
So some of them are quite happy to send back on all.
What's your name, please?
Richard Johnson. First of all, I want to say, Mitch, Sylvester, you did a great job.
Well, thank you.
But,
That does. It cancels everything before us.
but you said we should have a US dollar.
Yes. That was after the talk.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's absolutely. But anyway, I strongly disagree with that.
Okay, you can.
Because, first of all, they're going to collapse
Yeah.
financially, morally,
Yeah.
if not civil war-like, okay? And for hundreds of years, a gold-backed currency stopped inflation dead in its tracks.
Yes.
Now,
Or oil backed.
but Gaddafi and Hussein tried that, and look what happened to them.
Yeah.
So that's the counter-argument. But American dollars are not a good idea.
Yeah, go ahead, Governor.
So the American dollar is only an interim currency, just to insulate us from the shock of that Canada's gonna go through. So it's not something we plan on keeping permanently. Actually, I've got a plan from a guy named Brett Olin that's worked this out. It's probably between 12 and 24 months that we use the American dollar, and then switch to an Alberta dollar.
But it's a very dangerous
It is risk no matter what.
The Alberta dollar you're saying is a very dangerous thing to do?
No, an American
Oh, an
dollar.
American dollar, okay. So just gotta share a fact with the world here. Every country that has tried to do its own currency has ended up in a war. And that's the aha thing about that, but I agree with you 100% on all the rest of it. So what I'm saying is we have to be very careful what we do, because we don't want to shoot our way out of anything. And the other thing is that, yeah, if we could do it, well, how much better would it be? We could print all kinds of money for people just by using our resources as backup, and no inflation.
I agree, but mostly I agree we have to be cautious.
Okay, we only have about 10 minutes left, so please ask your question quickly, and we'll get to the answers real fast here.
Hi, my name is Troy, and great job.
Thank you.
And really fantastic. No but. No, there's no but it, yeah. You did good. So, here's my question. So when we win a referendum, and the people of Alberta vote to leave Confederation, people are gonna want it to happen fast. My understanding is that pursuant to the Clarity Act, this has to go through the House of Commons, and we need to negotiate with the rest of Canada. We're talking about cutting off the biggest source of funding for the entire country. They're not gonna go quietly into the night. So my question is, when they say no, when they stonewall, when they delay, what contingency plans are in place to counter that?
Well, can I tell you that we have one? Can I tell you we can't tell you what it is? That is the literal truth on both counts. Okay, so just let's explore something that we can't talk about, Statute of Westminster. Okay, Ireland declared its independence on the Statute of Westminster in 1931. It says that we're actually already independent based on the statute. Our government doesn't follow laws, so we're not likely to follow the statute. So that's one option. The other option is a constitutional conference that we're going to have 60 days in, and if the people endorse this constitutional conference and everybody signs on it, a majority of Albertans, then we could do like Kosovo did and use that to apply it to the world to become a free and independent state away from the federal government. Those are the two we can discuss.
Your name and question, please.
Yeah, my name's Kevin. Currently, the Canadian federal debt is around 1.5 trillion. If this goes through and we end up negotiating and we get saddled with much of that debt, what's the plan? Because obviously that would affect the financial benefit of an independent Alberta.
So the discussion around debt is actually more complex than you think. First of all, I mentioned that Alberta owns 12% of all the parks and stuff in Canada, and theoretically 12% of the debt. But remember that debt was incurred many times for purposes not related to Alberta assets, not related to Alberta operation, and therefore you can assume that we're going to negotiate and say, no, we're not going to take a per capita level, we'll take something less. So that's a fair negotiation that will likely happen. Second thing is, even worst case that we took on the 12% of the Canadian debt, we have the financial capacity to handle that. It's an extra burden, it would take away from other spending, of course, but it's something we could manage downward over time.
I have a question. So does our over-contribution fit into that equation?
Yes, that's a good add, because we calculated on the value of freedom, we take half of the CPP plan back. One of the concepts we discussed was, well, the half we don't get, how about that's our share of the debt?
My name's Randy, and John, thank you for all you do, and for all the Websters, and
Yeah, I thank him for all the stuff he does for us.
you're all great volunteers, everybody, thank you. My name's Randy, and I just wanted to ask about the fact, okay, our oil may be our biggest contribution, but here's the thing, what things like budgets we come along in the US and a whole bunch of different factors we may not even know about yet.
Yeah.
So we should keep that, I'll just have to keep that, just want to mention that. So I mean, we got data centers, we got all this natural gas, we got lots. But second thing, what about the fact that so many people are moving here from BC and Alberta, or Ontario, bringing their left boats with them, a lot of ones. Now, it's tough enough keeping Alberta together. Being the north is quite a bit left, Edmonton and that, and we're pretty much conservative on themselves. So I just wanted to ask, do you guys maybe have a chance to go do more like university events and things with young people and kind of get to that crowd? And also, you're also going to Edmonton, and you're at the Edmonton hockey games. So maybe if we can get into the Calgary hockey games, do it. Besides, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. The first thing I want to do before I answer that is thank everybody, thank all the volunteers while I have an opportunity. Please, thank all the organizers. As far as watching people coming to Alberta, I've heard it 1,000 times from people, literally 1,000 times from people that don't live here, is if you win, I'm coming. So there's going to have to be some kind of immigration process. Like, I mean, that's all there is to it. I mean, based on the fact that we had the best immigration process in the world, even 15 years ago, I don't think it should be that big a stretch. You'll have to be a contributor to come here, but also understand something else. Temporary foreign workers can be sent home because that's the contract, right? It doesn't mean that if you come here on a temporary foreign worker visa or whatever they come with, that you get to have it to be a permanent citizen. Nowhere else in the world does that happen. In Dubai, they bring people in all the time, and they never get to stay. In China, they never get to stay. In Japan, they never get to stay. In most of the world, they never get to stay. It's just something that the Liberal government has introduced here. So I don't think it's unreasonable to bring people here to work, fulfill your contract, and they can apply to stay to work. But if they're done, they have to go back home.
Thank you very much to Mitch and Dennis. Thanks for the great questions. SafetyAlberta.com. Go over there and check it out. Lots of things you can do. You can canvass, you can volunteer your time, you can donate. And this has been great. Thank you so much for coming out. Have a safe trip home.